29-year-old U.S. Army Sergeant James Thomas Hackemer was a father, soldier, and hero. He served his country in more ways than most people would ever do. In March 2008, James was 3 months into his second Iraq tour when his vehicle hit an improvised explosive device. The attack inflicted several injuries on him, including the loss of both legs. He survived, healed, and fought his way back to life. However, all that changed on July 8, 2011, when he was violently ejected from the 208-foot-tall Ride of Steel roller coaster at Darien Lake Theme Park in upstate New York. On that unfortunate day, he died instantly. The following investigations yielded some very disturbing results that eventually helped his family win a 7-figure lawsuit that secured his 2 daughters' future. Stay tuned for the whole story of the tragic death of James Hackemer at the Ride of Steel roller coaster. The last thing that would have ever crossed the mind of the double amputee and Iraq War veteran James Hackemer is that a roller coaster at an amusement park would do him what the most powerful explosives of war failed to do. Hackemer was severely wounded by an armor-penetrating warhead called an explosively formed penetrator while serving in Iraq in 2008. He described the aftermath of the attack, a hazy period in which he lost tremendous amounts of blood, had 2 strokes, and was in a coma for 6 weeks at a series of hospitals. The blood loss from the attack caused brain damage. Afterward, he had to relearn to eat and speak. He said once in an interview, "I had to learn all my basic skills again." After finally going home, he found that his parents had constructed ramps around the house and were trying to make him comfortable. He often admitted that he never felt normal again. James was a good man. He was also married to a fellow soldier from his unit, Sergeant Alicia Hackemer, who was pregnant with their second daughter when his vehicle was hit in Iraq. In the months leading to the roller coaster incident, James was frequenting the Walter Reed Army Center in Washington, D.C. He was very excited about the fact that they found a way to make him feel that he has legs again, with new prosthetic legs. James never got a chance to complete his healing journey, nor to walk again with new, advanced prosthetic legs. On Friday, July 8, 2011, James Hackemer, along with his sisters, a nephew, and his 4-year-old and 3-year-old daughters, checked into their rooms at the Darien Lake Hotel about 2 hours before they went to the Darien Lake Theme Park. They were super excited and happy. It was supposed to be a fun weekend, filled with family activities. Little did they know that their lives were about to change forever. Upon entering the park, employees directed James to the guest information booth for ride safety instructions. He was offered a brochure on safety procedures at each ride, but claimed to already have a copy and refused it. He was then given instructions on how to board rides at the park. This process was a standard procedure that applied to everyone. James and his 19-year-old nephew, who was visiting from Maryland, then proceeded directly to the Ride of Steel. Like most roller coasters, the Ride of Steel promised an unparalleled fun experience for thrill seekers. It was only natural for James to desire to take the ride because such an experience can make a man feel alive. And that's exactly what James needed, something to help him ease the pain and enjoy life again. At about 4:30 p.m., James was seated in the very front of the ride's train. He felt happier than a 6-year-old because for too long his war wounds made everything in his life limited. In fact, James was determined to take all the roller coaster rides at the park that day, and he simply couldn't wait. The train began to move, and within seconds, it was traveling at more than 50 miles per hour, and as usual, the screams of thrill and joy were loud. He should have never been allowed to take the ride that day. The fact that he was missing an entire leg and most of the other one should have triggered alarms among the park's employees and supervisors. The Ride of Steel operators should have simply refused him entry out of fear for his safety, and because, as it later turned out, It is something that is clearly mentioned in the ride's safety manual. But no one said anything, nor even mentioned to James that it isn't safe for him to take the ride because the safety belt and bar are not designed to keep people without legs safe or in place. Both of his sisters, Katie Marks and Jodie Heckerman, along with his cousin Ashton Luffred, confirmed that the park attendants did not challenge the disabled veteran's desire to ride the coaster. They didn't even ask him any questions. They simply helped him to his seat, checked that the safety belt and bar were working, and moved on. A minute later, James flew out of his seat and fell tens of feet to the ground. He instantly died. Why was he not allowed to take the ride after all? People without legs are not allowed to take the other two nearby roller coasters, the Moto Coaster and Predator. Even people who are less than 54 inches tall are not allowed to take any of the coasters and many of the other rides, yet James took the ride as if no one knew anything about the rules. What was supposed to keep him safe and his place on the ride's train, where passengers are held in by a bar that sits across their legs, James had no legs. The ride of steel was simply not safe, even when all the rules were followed. Some believe that previous accidents proved that there is a flaw in its restraint system design. According to investigative journalists, in 2004, a 55-year-old man with cerebral palsy died when he fell out of a Superman ride of steel coaster at a Six Flags amusement park in Agawam, Massachusetts. That ride has the same design as the one at Darien Lake. Investigators blamed the operator for not checking the restraints. In 1999, a passenger fell out of his seat on the Darien Lake coaster and broke several ribs. Investigators later concluded that the lap restraining bar hadn't been pushed down far enough to lock properly because of the man's large size. According to investigators, as the ride crested a hill on the east side of the ride, Hackemer's hat flew off his head and he tried to catch it, but it was immediately ejected from his seat. However, that does not explain why his safety restraints failed to keep him safe. And there is still no explanation for why operators allowed Hackemer to board the ride of steel in the first place. The investigators concluded that the ride operator and ride's training materials met the requirements of the manufacturer. However, there were many issues related to the employee's ability to comprehend these training materials and safety issues. The investigators were literally saying that the workers did not quite understand the rules in the manuals. This begged a huge question. Should not the theme park make sure that its employees are competent enough and pass safety exams? The training manual, as well as rules posted at the entrance and exits to the ride of steel, state explicitly that a person must have 2 legs to board the coaster because the ride has no shoulder harness, only a T-bar lap restraint and seat belts. 3 of the ride attendants confirmed in their statements to the police that they saw Hackemer board the ride, being lifted into his seat by his nephew, and noticed that he was missing both legs. However, none of them undertook any steps to stop James from taking the ride. They didn't even seek advice from the supervisor. When the ride returned, passengers were screaming that a rider had fallen from one of the cars. All 3 operators on the boarding platform immediately noticed that Hackemer's seat was empty, but that the restraints were still in place. James was simply ejected from his seat because he had no legs. They even suspect that he died before his body hit the ground because the moment he was ejected from his seat, his head hit the front of the train quite hard, which killed him instantly. What is even more disturbing about the whole incident is the fact that James Hackemer was 47 inches tall on his left side and 39 inches tall on his right side. And there is a mark on the entrance to catch those less than 54 inches tall and prevent them from taking the ride. James died because the park ownership and management failed to adequately train their employees on how to follow the safety rules for guests. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell button to get notified every time we upload a new video that will take you to the heart of the scenes and mysteries of some of the most terrifying incidents accidents, disasters, and paranormal events from around the world.